Oh, this is it. SuperMotocross Insider coming your way. Everyone has arrived. It's Angel Stadium. It's Anaheim, the start of a new SuperMotocross World Championship season and Monster Energy AMA Supercross. We're normally your insiders, Jason and Jason, but you're all insiders now because you're going to be back watching races on Saturday night. JT, I always say this. It's better than Christmas. It's better than New Year's. There is nothing better than unpacking all this goodness that is round one.
It's unreal. And I get the same feeling every single year. And to be honest, it feels like we just got off the plane leaving the SMX finale in Los Angeles. And here we are. But I can tell you that I am refreshed. I have my energy back. I'm so excited. And we've talked so much leading up to the series. We're going to do more of that today. But I don't know. If you can't get excited for A1, maybe you're in the wrong sport. It is just such a dynamic event. And you don't never really know what's going to happen. And I think that's what makes A1 so exciting.
Well, I'm glad you hit on that point because this is how you know it's not just the hype of us and the media or the fans. It affects the riders too. We have seen so many, as you're saying, weird openers that don't necessarily reflect the rest of the season. You lived that atmosphere, JT. A lot of the riders are also affected by this hype, and some of them don't ride like they normally would.
Yeah, and I think you really have to keep that in mind if you are a rider. It is just another round. And sure, so many eyeballs are on and everybody wants to leave and draw conclusions from this race. But I always think that's a mistake. There's too much pressure, too much anticipation, and there's been too much time to think about this particular round to really lead where the championship's going to go. So I think you just come in, you put your best foot forward, and you leave here healthy and let the series play out what it will. But we all know we're all going to jump to conclusions. We're all going to think we know what's going to happen with this series on that Saturday night. But I really, really caution against that because A1 is such a weird event that way.
Yeah, if we were going by openers, and that's the way this series is going to go, Ken Roczen and Justin Barcia would be multi-time AMA Supercross champions because they're always great at the openers. It doesn't necessarily mean the title is going to go their way. So let's bring in some real expertise, someone who's won more Supercross titles than anyone else. It's time for the big interview. Big interview time, and we got the biggest. We got the King of Supercross, Jeremy McGrath here. First of all, thanks for joining us on the family vacation through the holidays. We're all trying to fit it in, but like you said, we all love to talk Supercross. I would love, Jeremy, to ask you about Deep Field and who's going to win the title and all this stuff, but I got to go right at the heart, right off the bat. Jet Lawrence has been saying 72, 73 wins. That's a goal of his. He thinks he could do it. That would break your all-time record. When you hear that, do you laugh? Do you do angry face emoji? How do you feel when you hear someone who hasn't actually raced 450 Supercross yet setting that standard?
Yeah, I think it's pretty funny. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm always excited to talk Supercross. I'm a fan. I think Jet is an amazing rider, and he's done already some amazing things, especially on 450, as well as his 250. But let's just talk real stuff right now. I mean, he hasn't even raced an official Supercross yet. So it's a little strange for me to hear that, to him to be talking about my records. I think when I was coming up and I was going to be racing the guys that I looked up to, I didn't look at Rick Johnson's number at 28 and go, you know what? I'm taking that number down. I think it's doable. Like I was just worried about winning a race, or even, at that time I didn't even know if I could win a race. So obviously this situation is a little bit different, but I mean, he's young enough and the possibilities are out there, but it's a lot of races.
Switching gears a little bit to Chase Sexton, you're one of the only riders that's ever won a championship and then switched manufacturers going into the next season. So as we see Chase switch to the KTM for 2024, obviously he's had a little bit more time than you did when you switched to the Suzuki. But what do you think some of the challenges are going to be coming off such high expectations? And he was the champion, right? So it feels like switching to the KTM would anything less than another championship will be a little bit of a letdown. But you having walked through that process, what do you think that's going to be like for him?
Yeah, I think it's interesting for sure. Especially the speculation going into it, right? He was Honda rider for so long, and then you hear these rumors of, and I'm sort of an outsider now, you guys, but you guys will know this better than me. But having signed with KTM such a long time ago, which was a strange situation for me to hear. Chase Sexton's an amazing rider. What he was doing on his Honda was pretty amazing. It will be cool. I think it's a different situation. I mean, when I switched that year from Honda to Suzuki, I still had no problem believing I could win. So I think he still thinks he can win. It's not a problem. However, I think, he's got some other guys in there that probably think differently, but I'm excited to see it. I mean, KTM's in a great position. We all know they can win championships and win plenty of races. So I don't really look at it as a negative, really. I think he's going to do great, and we all know the struggles he has had while leading races and stuff like that. So maybe there's a chance that some of the, this bike could fix some of that.
You have the most Supercross wins ever, but even your performance in the opener was mixed. You won some opening rounds, dominated. You had other opening rounds where you just get a 7th, but then the rest of the season was fine. Just talk about the strategy. When you're trying to win the title, everyone says, you can lose the title in the first race, but you can't win it. Talk about your strategy going in Anaheim 1 and how that might reflect with guys that think they can win the title this year and what they're planning for the opener.
Well, listen, that is a very true statement, right? You can maybe lose the title, but maybe even not. If you're dominant, it doesn't really matter. The only one who always said that is Ricky Carmichael, right? Because he didn't really like Anaheim too much. He just wanted to get back on the East Coast. For me, I was going there to set a precedent. I was going to win the race. I wanted to get everyone on their heels, going, all right, look, we got to beat this guy again. And so that was my thinking going in. Of course, it was my home race. And when you go to your home race, you have a lot of energy. You get all that super power from the fans. I loved it. I thought it was great. And once I got a taste of that, I wanted it just to happen, especially at Anaheim, a lot. So, this year the field's deep. I think we've seen some changes. I'm really excited to see Eli back. I think that's going to be good for all of us. It looks like, at least from Instagram, from where I sit, he's riding pretty well. And then, of course, with Hunter and Jet and some of the new guys, it's going to be a fun season, huh? We always go into Anaheim going, all right, there's like 10 guys, who's going to win? This year, actually, I think the field might be pretty mixed up, so I'm excited for it.
I love it. Jeremy McGrath, just a fan like anybody else. It's so cool. Looking forward to seeing you at some races too. But enjoy the family time because it's go time soon. So enjoy it while you got it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. Well, thanks for having me. Happy New Year. Looking forward to seeing you guys at Supercross, and can't wait to see some battles.
Okay, so the countdown is on to Anaheim 1, and the countdown is on with the 30-second board. Hot topics in the sport. Yeah, countdown to A1. We already said off the top, it's to me better than Christmas and New Year's. And to me, especially last year, JT, the crowd during opening ceremonies was extra loud. You might think that's just hype, but I have a theory that riders are racing longer and they're doing a better job establishing their brands and their personalities. I feel like there's more of a connection. They're not just guys with a bike and a number and a color on the motorcycle. And then think about this year with Eli Tomac coming back, the reception he's going to get. So I think even opening ceremonies is going to be dynamite.
Yeah, and it's infectious, right? Everybody gets excited. And yes, the personalization of these riders, and fans are truly becoming fans of the personalities of these riders too. And you can feel it. If you've ever been to this event, I don't have to explain it to you, but for those that haven't, there's simply no electricity in the air at Anaheim that's really hard to replicate.
Now we'll go to the actual racing part of it. You studied this track map for Anaheim 1. So what do you see when you look at it?
In years past, I've often wondered if the track builders were trying to ease the riders in, maybe get everybody through the first one, or sometimes just create some really tight racing because the track is a little bit easier. So when I look at this one, I see some of those same kind of dynamics, a lot of open straightaways, a lot of fast sections, not too many technical aspects to it. So that leads me to think the start's going to be critically important. And we also might see some really close racing because some of the sections to pass, you might have to get in there and be really aggressive.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see how that affects the racing. But there are 2 sections of whoops, but you don't think that's necessarily going to be that crazy?
I don't think they'll be too tough, but it will be a really nice passing opportunity. The 2 bowl berms before and after will give riders a chance to really slingshot. So you think about a guy like Malcolm Stewart. If he doesn't get the best start, he's going to really try to carry a ton of momentum, slingshot past the lead rider and get in front of him on the inside of that next bowl berm. So while they may not be too difficult, it's going to be one of the biggest passing zones on the A1 track.
It's also pretty new, I think, to most fans, the new start times for the races. We're trying to start the Pacific time events earlier to make it easier to watch live on the East. So, for example, Anaheim 1, our pre-race show on Peacock will start at 4:30 local time, which makes it 7:30 Eastern. We talked about this before, JT, but as a fan, I think it's great. And you think for the athletes, better as well.
Yeah, I think everybody wins. For the riders, most of them have been on the East Coast for the entire offseason training and riding. So they're used to going to bed earlier than it would be typical for the main event, right? And I remember myself in this dynamic, I would have to stay up throughout the Christmas and New Year's period till like midnight trying to teach my body to be able to perform really late at night. Well, this is a big help. It's going to kind of remove that from the equation. Riders won't be yawning on the starting line as they're kind of trying to prepare for the main event. And as you said, for the fans, yeah, everybody wants to be able to get, these races in and still be in bed at a decent time.
SMX Video Pass, we've been talking about this. If you live outside of the United States, we've always had a broadcast you can watch. Go to SuperMotocross.tv for that. But this year, we've added the Spanish language broadcast for the first time.
Y ya cae el partido y están en carrera, tomando la primera curva. ¿Quién toma el comando, Tommy?
Partiendo primero, nuestro piloto favorito.
We got to meet TJ, who we've known through racing as our analyst now. We'll meet him on the TV side. And Edgar as well, who handle the play-by-play. Cool guys, and they're super into the sport. I feel like adding TJ Rios, it's like we've added another insider to our mix.
Yeah, TJ has a ton of experience, and he really knows this sport inside and out. He's been out there. He understands what these riders are going through. So to have someone with his insight and then have someone like Edgar, who the professionalism he brings, the other sports, and he knows how to connect with the audience at home, I think it's a really great team they have there.
Okay, so Spanish language broadcast, or again in English in countries outside the United States. If you want to stream it here domestically, of course, that's going to be on Peacock. Let's get down to the racing, but with a little twist. Sirius XM Radio, this is kind of new information for us, is coming in. We hear you will be able to listen to some Monster Energy Supercross on there. Back in the day, Jim Holley and I hosted the live audio webcast of Supercross. This is almost 15, 20 years ago. We were on XM Radio. Good to have it back. People are going to be scrolling the channels and say, oh, what's this? Could be good for the sport.
Yeah, this is great. I actually have Sirius XM Radio in my truck. I listen to it all the time. So for me, the more mediums, the better. Adding the Spanish broadcast, adding Sirius XM back in, the more ways that we can connect with fans and provide this content, the better. Some people are driving across the country at this time. It's right past the holidays. Think about all the long haul truck drivers out there that are Supercross fans that don't have a way to tune in. Now they do. So yeah, this is a great addition.
Now into the depths of racing. We were talked so much in the preseason about 450s. We probably haven't talked enough about the 250 class. We at least have, and this is rare, a pretty good idea of who is actually going to be racing 250 West. So we've picked out a couple that we think are at least the contenders on paper for this. Nate Thrasher, Levi Kitchen, RJ Hampshire, Joe Shimoda, Jordan Smith, Garrett Marchbanks. Those are the names that are jumping out to us. But I'm going to start here with those Monster Energy Yamaha star riders with Thrasher and Smith. Man, I would not be surprised if either one of them were title. In fact, if one of them is not, it might be as surprising as if one of them is. These are guys that have won a lot of races before.
Yeah, those are two names that we weren't really sure where they were racing, but yes, they're going to be in the mix. Now, the question mark on Thrasher is, where is his health? Where is his recovery? He had a huge injury in 2023. So is he back to that level that we last saw him in Atlanta? And then Jordan Smith, all of the drama surrounding he and Hayden Deegan last year. But you think about where he was in the middle of that Los Angeles SMX finale. We were talking about him being the surprise champion of the class. And we all know that Jordan's capable. He was this close to being your 2017 East Coast champion. So we'll see how it all plays out. But those were two names that I didn't expect that are now right squarely in the mix.
And then I go to what I consider the new guys, Levi Kitchen and Joe Shimoda, who I think are both positioned to maybe become the guy or the next guy of the 250s. You could see a world 3 years from now where they're the hot rookie moving into the 450 class. Will this be the year that it clicks for one of those two?
Yeah, well, even the three, I think one of these becomes champion. I really do. And you look at RJ Hampshire's season last year, outside of A2, which was an absolute disaster by every measure, he was phenomenal the rest of the series. Now, you could also say his last-ditch pass attempt in East Rutherford was a little mistimed and probably a bad idea too, but every other round, I believe he was second place.
Yeah, I think my question there is going to be, if RJ's exactly as good as he was in 2023, he should be the best of the group. But the question is, can the younger guys like, say, Kitchen and Shimoda take a big step from where they were last year? Okay, that's 250 West. We might be wrong. There might be a seventh guy we didn't even mention here who ends up winning the title. That's kind of the nature of that class. 450s is much more established. We're counting 19 riders with significant titles under their belt who should be on the starting gate for Anaheim 1 in the 450 class. If you compare it to last year, Marvin Musquin is not racing this time. We lost him. Joey Savacci, we lost him as well. He'll be back for motocross. But we've gained Hunter and Jet Lawrence and Justin Cooper as rookies. Jorge Prado coming over from the MXGP World Championship. And then oddly last year, this happens because the field is so deep. Shane McElrath, Benny Bloss, Kyle Chisholm did not make the main at Anaheim last year. Add those names in, man, it's going to be tough getting into the main event for anybody. And I guess that's your point. A good rider like McElrath could not make the main. That's how hard it is.
Holy cow, this lineup is ridiculous, and everybody should be terrified because how do you slot in guys that have been legitimate top 5 guys in this class before? A guy like Kyle Chisholm may not make the main event. It's just a really tough thing. And for us fans, it's incredible because there's going to be talent all the way through the field. And there may be a battle going on in 12th of a guy that's won a race before. That's the incredible thing about, especially early in the season where most of the riders are healthy. So thankfully, I'm not a rider anymore. I don't care. I get to sit back, talk about the races, and bring all the, the excitement to the people at home. But man, for these riders, it's going to be really nerve-wracking.
Old versus new. This is kind of the theme, I feel, of Supercross 2024. When you have these rookies coming in, we already mentioned adding Justin Cooper and the Lawrence brothers in, and then this very established group with Eli Tomac returning, Jason Anderson hoping to get back to where he was. I don't know if we consider Chase Sexton or he's kind of in between, but we definitely consider multi-time champs like Tomac, Webb, and Ken Roxon, not a Supercross champ, but a champion in many series. I like this battle. Young guys, established guys. This is going to be cool.
It's always a fluid situation, and for a lot of these guys, they have, a guy like Eli Tomac's probably like, man, I'm the old guy now, right? And he probably feels like he should go out there and win. But you've got a kid like Jet Lawrence who's like, no, this is my time. I have arrived now. And then Chase Sexton's like, hello, I have the #1 plate on my bike. I just won this thing, and I'm 24 years old. So there's a lot to unpack there, but it's always interesting to see that kind of ever-evolving situation amongst the paddock of who thinks they're the alpha, who's the old lion that's trying to hang on to his territory a little bit.
Yeah, I like it. You can categorize pretty much every rider except Sexton. He's like dead set in the middle. He's not the youngest guy, but he's not one of the veterans either. He's right there in the middle, and he has the #1 plate. So isn't that interesting symbolically how that plays out? We mentioned the Lawrences coming into the class. Obviously, on the racetrack, that's going to be pretty exciting. But they've got this VIP program going that I think is going to be a lot different. We'll see what it actually looks like when we get to Anaheim. But we've had VIP programs in the sport before. JT, I'll give you credit. You were a pioneer in this field of helping fans get a little insider look. But what the Lawrence brothers are doing is taking what everybody else has done and going to a much higher level with it.
Yeah, this is just the next evolution of all things that the Lawrence brothers are doing. You look at the donuts, and such a strange thing to be selling donuts, but it's worked. It's become really, really popular for them. You look at the pre-A1 type events they've had where they have meet and greets and press conferences and all these things. They're simply doing things a little bit different. And I think they're trying to kind of expand their horizons, reach people that may not have been Supercross fans the last few years and connect with them and bring them into the sport. So I commend it. I think it's great.
Okay, so that's on and off the racetrack. Last thing we want to mention, of course, we're saying this is our Anaheim 1 preview, but it's all part of the 31-round SMX Championship, and we are not going to give you all the locations, but we can tell you this. It'll be 3 playoff rounds in unique locations in September, and as we learned last year, JT, it'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, I can't believe we're already going into A1, and I can tell you as we're rolling into September and I'm about to launch these playoff rounds, I'm going to say the same thing. I can't believe we're here for the playoffs yet again, but we have 28 fantastic weekends of racing before we get there, and I was so ready for a break leaving LA. I think everybody needed it. We've had a couple months off. We're through Christmas, through New Year's. It's just time to go again, and no one's more excited about it than I am.
All right, let's bring in a gentleman who might be just as excited about Anaheim 1 as JT. That is our own statistician, Clinton Fowler, for Fowlers Facts, and we're going to use the facts For the positive here, we're going to draw trends as to why several guys could win this title. Let's use the old hashtag deep field thing and get excited. So give me some names and give me some numbers to prove why a variety of riders could win the title this year.
All righty, Weege. Let's start with Chase Sexton. Last year, 2023, wins the title. Not only did he win the title, he spotted everybody 35 points via those 7 mistakes. And we've talked a lot about those mistakes. But let's talk about the fact that he spotted those guys 35 points. And those 35 points were all through the first 11 rounds, and they weren't in the last 6 rounds. So JT, it feels like he should win one, but he's made that transition to KTM.
Yeah, I think the real question is, will he be the same Chase Sexton as far as top end speed goes in 2024 like he was in 2023? If that's the case, he's going to be very hard to deal with. And you did mention all those crashes. I specifically remember standing there in Oakland going, if he doesn't clean that up, if he can't find a way to stop throwing races away, this is going to be a very long year for him. And we know that it got a little better. He ended up being the champion. But I think those questions still remain. First being first, can he be that fast again, set all those fast qualifying times, be who we considered the fastest guy on the racetrack? And then 2, can he clean up that mistake that he was unable to clean up for most of the year?
Next rider on the list here, I'm going to go on a limb. You could probably find some data that proves Eli Tomac is really good at racing a motorcycle.
He's won a few races, maybe 51 Supercross races. Weege, obviously second all time in the series for wins. Incredible talent. I feel like he's coming back with nothing to lose. Weege, do you have him in winning? You got him winning next year?
Winning races, yes. Podiums, yes. I mean, title for anyone is hard to say yes. I consider him as good as anyone. Here's the point I keep saying. I don't think the injury is going to have any effect on Eli. So if you're getting the same Eli in 2023, you run that season in a simulator a bunch of times, he wins it a bunch of times. What makes it hard to understand when we talk about Sexton and the bike switch and Tomac and the return from injury is that there are other variables that makes any experiment uncontrolled, because we're dropping Jet Lawrence in. We didn't have that last year in Supercross. So what are you seeing with Lawrence? Numbers jumping off the page, Clinton.
I mean, this one has to be the most obvious of obvious, but 22-0 in a pro motocross season as a rookie is absolutely unprecedented. So I think that we've got to call out. I'd also just note he did that with incredible speed. So JT, you were talking about Chase Sexton having the raw speed last year. In the outdoors, Jet Lawrence was fastest in 17 of those 22 moto wins. So he's going to be bringing that pace this year as well. So it'll be interesting to see how those two face off against each other.
Yeah, I think for Jet, the A1 track sets up pretty nicely because I do think it's going to be very start dependent. And we saw how fantastic Jet is on the starts. Supercross was a little bit different. You look at the SMX playoffs, it wasn't quite as consistent, but in pro motocross, he had it dialed in. And I think you'll see that show up when we get to A1. And then the track itself, it's not that technical. It's going to be fast, a lot of straightaways, a lot of open corners. And I think that sets up nicely for Jet. He's not going to have to be so worried about bike setup. He's going to allow that to play into his strengths, which is raw speed, cornering ability. And if you couple that with a good start, I don't know. I could see Jet winning this. His agent has told me many, many times that Jet is at his best when the lights are their brightest. And there are no brighter lights than Anaheim 1.
Now, there is a title contender on paper. It should be obvious, but for some reason it's not. I don't think people are talking about this dude at all, and it's Cooper Webb. So give us the numbers to show why we probably should be.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that stands out for me is he was one of the 3 racers last year that held the red plate, and he held it for 2 rounds. That says something, including the fact that he is a 2-time champion and he's 10th all-time in wins with 21 Supercross main event wins. So the fact that we're not talking about him is a bit surprising considering the numbers that he's had in the past. And JT, I mean, yes, it's a switch, but it's a switch to a place that he was really happy to before.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very important for Cooper to just get through the opening rounds and log decent points. I don't expect him to come out and win A1. I think that would be the shock of the season if Cooper Webb found a way to win A1. I think the game plan and the way this, if it goes well for Cooper Webb in 2024, the way that it plays out is he hangs around, maybe grabs a podium. He's top 5 a lot throughout January and February. And once we move east, you see the meteoric rise of Cooper Webb. He starts grabbing a win. He's much more relevant in every single round. You start to see him build confidence. And then the last 5 rounds, it's game on.
Let's go to Ken Roczen now. I don't think a year ago at this time we considered him a title contender. Are things starting to trend that way? What do the numbers say?
I think we've got something here as it relates to bike setup and when he made the switch to active ride suspension at Oakland. Pre and post Oakland, he was 6th beforehand in an average. He averaged 4th after. That to me is an indication. And the most important thing may be the fact that the 11 rounds after he had 5 podiums, in the 6 rounds before he only had 1. So to me, that says that he made some bike setup changes, and those things he really meshed with.
Yeah, and Kenny, to me, is one of those guys where I don't know if he's going to be necessarily the champion, right? We know that it's tough for him to put together so many rounds weekend after weekend after weekend, all the surgeries he's had, the immunodeficiency difficulties he's had. But this is a guy that could come in and win A1, right? There are not a lot of people that have him on their radar for championship, but he is a guy that doesn't necessarily feel pressure in the way these other guys do. And that's why he's always performed so well at A1. I think Ken Roczen is a guy that when he feels pressure and everybody's nervous, he rides his best. So don't be shocked if you see that number 94 yellow Suzuki running around out front.
There's one other rider who people are probably not thinking of, but a year ago, he might have been at the very, very top of the list of title contenders. That's Jason Anderson. So what do you have for him, Clinton?
Yeah, tough year in 2023 for him. He crashed in 8 of 15 rounds that he lined up for, which cost him, from my tally, 41 points. And obviously you're not going to contend for a title when you've got crashes in 8 of 15, but he had the speed. He was constantly a 2nd or 3rd fastest qualifier just behind Chase Sexton last year. It just didn't translate into the main events because of those mistakes. And so JT, I look at that and I think, man, if he can bring that speed again next year, he should win races and should contend for the title.
Yeah, Jason Anderson for me was the most disappointing rider of 2023. And that sounds harsh, but it's only harsh because I had such high expectations. If he had not put in that 2022 season, 2023 would have been normal. You know, it would have been some good, some bad, maybe not the season he was looking for, but 2022 really raised the bar. So I want to see him bounce back. And I think he wants to get back and show everybody that 2022 wasn't a fluke and he's going to be that same guy again in 2024.
And those are just a few. I mean, there are many other guys that could win races or even lead the points, right? That aren't on this group we talked about now, Clinton.
We didn't even hit on Hunter Lawrence, Malcolm Stewart. I mean, God, Christian Craig could be there, right? Just, yeah, there's an incredible depth this year, guys.
Yep. And especially at the opener, we get used to being surprised. Don't be surprised if we're surprised again. Thanks, Clinton. We'll see you Saturday at Anaheim.
Yeah, great to talk, guys.
All right, only one significant detail left, how to actually watch all this from Anaheim. We've mentioned it several times. We'll remind you again. We'll have a pre-race show streaming on Peacock at 4:30 local time in California. That's 7:30 Eastern with myself and Katie Osborne, who's covered a ton of different motorsports, including Supercross. She's also got a really cool F1 podcast. So it'll be fun to hang out with her for our pre-race show, show you opening ceremonies. And at 8 Eastern, 5 o'clock local time, that's when the racing begins. You can continue watching that on Peacock with the SuperMotocross video pass outside of America, or it will also air on television on USA Network again, starting at 8 Eastern. And there'll be a re-air of the racing, 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon Eastern, the next day on NBC. So a million different ways to see this, JT. And is this not must-watching? What else are you going to do? It's the first week of January. Half the country, it won't even be fun to go outside.
Yeah, this is truly must-see TV. It absolutely is. And I don't care if you're a Supercross fan or not. I promise you, you will be entertained by A1. It's impossible not to. There's just so much intrigue, entertainment, suspense. It has everything. Laugh, you'll cry, you'll leave with a smile on your face, I promise.
And don't just take it from us. Here are the actual athletes with their thoughts on the opener.
A1 is so special. I just think because it's in California, obviously. It's in the mecca of, you know, where motocross is the biggest, and I think a lot of hype comes around A1, obviously, because it's the first race. It's where everybody lines up to see where, you know, has the training this year been good or has it been bad, or what do I need to fix here, what do I need to fix there.
And it's just an entirely packed stadium at night. It's really hard to describe the feeling, exactly how cool it is. It's kind of unlike anything that I've ever experienced before. And to be able to come to Anaheim 1 this year on a brand new bike that's just now getting introduced into the sport, to be one of the 2 guys that gets to help bring that into the sport is just awesome and crazy.
Oh, A1's always different, and it always will be. You know, the house Jeremy McGrath built, if you will. There's just a special energy at the first race. It's just, especially as somebody that just loves the sport and such a hardcore fan like myself, there's really nothing like it in the world, and I look forward to it, and I find myself, you know, just very excited to be a part of it. You know, that's all I've really ever wanted, is a small piece of to be a small part of, you know, dirt bike racing and supercross and motocross, and I'm here doing it.
Honestly, I think it's pretty special. As a racer, you got to kind of view it as like it's just another race, just from a pressure standpoint, like, you know, trying to think about things like that. But man, honestly, I mean, when I was a kid, before I turned pro, you know, I was 10, 12 years old, we would fly out and watch Anaheim, you know, whatever the opener, and I'd watch, you know, Ricky and James and Chad and Jeremy, you know, racing. Who's going to be worse or better? Who's going to win? You know, it kind of just resets everything. As a racer, it's just another race and everything's the same, right? The cream always rises to the top, whatever, all that, you know, stuff. But I mean, I'm a fan of the sport, and I think it's just the excitement of, we haven't seen everybody race in a few months, and some people are on new stuff, and how's it going to play out?
A1 is for sure special. It's the start of the year. A lot of hype around it, and I think that's what makes it so special. It's just another race, but you have all the racers have been off for a few months, so everyone's kind of, you know, they have all this time to speculate what's going to happen at the race and who's going to be where, and at the end of the day, it's just a race where there's a lot more pressure and a lot more, I guess, that you don't know.
Yeah, it's special to be here racing another year. Growing up here, it's pretty crazy and surreal that I'm the guy down there racing right now. So it never gets old. Those butterflies never go away, and the jitters. It's something that you can't get anywhere else, and it's only here at Anaheim for sure.
I think you're right. I think Anaheim is just the most intense race of the season, just because it's the first one, and it's in this stadium that has so much history and been the first one for so many years, and we've seen so many crazy things happen in this stadium. So for sure, like, yeah, Anaheim is one of the best races of the season for sure.
Yeah, that says it all right there. There's just great anticipation. And like I said at the very top of the show, it will impact the results. We're ready, JT. We'll see you Saturday. This is going to be awesome.